Hello everyone. On behalf of our team, I am pleased to welcome you to our presentation on the role of corporate governance. During this presentation, we will cover topics such as who are the participants, what is the mechanism, and what are the incentives for corporate governance. We hope that this will help you have a better understanding of how to integrate accountability, fairness, and transparency in the system. We will also discuss two case studies of companies, one of which there was an ineffective governance, and one for which we have identified a good example of effective corporate governance. You will see, corporate governance is not only a fancy word, it has an impact on a lot of participants in and off the system of a corporation.
Hello, this is Tülay Güneysel. Role of corporate governance. Corporate governance, which can be defined as the relationship between the various participants in determining the direction and performance of the corporation. The primary participants are shareholders, management, and board of directors. Corporate governance is, in a way, a control system for top management. Corporate governance refers to a system for measuring top managers' performance and motivating them to work to maximize shareholder value. How do they effectively work together? The shareholders management in a modern corporation means shareholders have limited liability, can participate in the profits without taking direct responsibility for operations. Management can run the company without personally providing any funds. The board of directors are elected by shareholders, have a fiduciary obligation to protect shareholder interest. These primary participants work effectively to ensure trustworthy relationships between the corporation and its stakeholders. Therefore, a good governance involves a lot more than compliance. Good corporate governance is a culture and climate of consistency, responsibility, accountability, fairness, transparency, and effectiveness that deployed throughout the organization. Internal governance mechanism. Corporate governance mechanism aligning the interests of owners and managers through a committed and involved board of directors that act in the best interest of shareholders by regularly evaluating the CEO, replacing him or her if necessary, review the vision, mission, and strategic objectives of the corporation, provide advice to top management, review various systems that ensures the corporate office compliance with laws and regulations. Shareholder activism, where the owners of the corporation become actively involved in the governance of the corporation. Managers' reward and incentives such as reward compensation agreements that align management stakeholders' interest, and making a decision about CEO duality.
Internal governance mechanism. Committed and involved board of directors. The board must devote time to critical issues where the members can add value. They must be involved in forward-looking strategic planning and issues, such as assessed value drivers, resource allocations, and performance synergies. Firms must encourage and build on engaged and committed boards. They must build a board where there is a board dynamics to enhance the involvement of all the board directors. They must have expertise on board, keep the board size manageable, directors who can fully be involved in organization development. There must be a focused balance between past, present, and future. There must be talent development of the directors in the board, a key understanding of the broad view, and transparency and trust between the board members. Shareholders' activism. When managers' action differs from shareholders' interest, the shareholders use shareholder activism to protect their interest. Owners are share owners and not just shareholders. Owners are no longer just passive investors. They review firms' short and long-term performance, financial status, governance characteristics, and market expectations. As needed, they will request the changes in firms' governance structures. Owners can also file proxy or court action if the organization is not effectively responding to shareholder concerns. The case study done for shareholders' activism was the Carl Icahn versus Time Warner. Carl Icahn is one of Wall Street's most ruthless corporate raiders. In 2006, he led a group holding 3.3% of Time Warner stock that believed the company's merger with AOL was a disaster and wanted to split up with the company into 4 companies. After much public infighting, in exchange for the company buying back $20 million in stock of Icahn's group, Icahn agreed not to contest the re-election of Time Warner's slate of board members. Icahn was right about wanting to split the company, as a division of the company in 2013 led to significantly increased value. Unfortunately for Icahn, he liquidated all of his shares in 2008. Managerial or CEO incentives. CEO can be major owners of company stock. CEO's salaries, bonuses, and stock option are aligned with the performance of an organization. They're penalized for poor performance, and they can also be dismissed for poor performance.
Now looking outside the firm, external governance mechanisms ensure that managerial actions are leading to increased shareholder value. There are 6 mechanisms that operate outside of the organization that look to maximize shareholder value, and they are market for corporate control, auditors, banks and analysts, governmental regulatory bodies, the media, and public activists. External auditors are independent organizations of certified professionals that inspect financial records to ensure that management has not deliberately altered or withheld negative financial information. They ensure that shareholders are not seeing false financial numbers. Market for corporate control is a mechanism in which shareholders who are dissatisfied with a firm's management liquidate their shares. When internal controls fail and shareholders become dissatisfied and sell, the value of the shares declines below value, which opens the door for corporate raiders to buy low and then dismiss management. Banks and financial analysts govern externally as lenders, ensuring that the organization's finances are in order, as well as confirming that loan contracts are followed correctly. Analysts also provide financial recommendations after they have conducted an in-depth analysis of the firm. The SEC, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, is a governmental regulatory body that serves to regulate the financial information of public organizations. Firms are required to file with the SEC both quarterly and annually, providing the Commission with the necessary information to keep organizations honest. The most public external governance mechanism is the media, which comprises of television, radio, the internet, as well as business magazines and newspapers. All of these outlets keep the public updated on organization news and performance, critically presenting the facts and recommendations on the direction that experts believe a firm is moving, while also greatly affecting the firm's public perception and the quality of its management. When a firm's management is operating in an immoral way or when corporate malfunctions are exposed, consumer groups and activists will do what they can to let management and the public know that they have been wronged by publicly rallying against the firm.
Ineffective corporate governance, a case study of Enron. Corporate governance plays a vital role in the overall health of modern economic systems, but it has not always been like that. Corporate governance has been around since the 1930s, but it was ignored as a matter of importance until the wave of U.S. corporate fraud in the 1990s, mostly attributed to the deficiencies in corporate governance. The collapse of Enron in 2001 renewed interest on the importance of the corporate governance role in the financial sector and ultimately resulted in the development of a strong corporate governance framework to protect stakeholders and secure investors' confidence. So who was Enron? Enron was once accredited to be the 7th largest corporation in the U.S. It was based in Houston, Texas, and traded in energy and commodities. What happened? By the time Enron collapsed, Enron shareholders lost $74 billion in assets. 20,000 employees lost their jobs, and $2 billion were lost in retirement funds. How they did it? CEO Jeff Skilling and Ken Lay started losing money and accumulating debt. And instead of cutting their losses, they decided to use accounting tricks that kept that debt off the books. And how they got caught gets a credit to media that started wondering if Enron was overvalued, and also to whistleblower VP of Corporate Development Sharon Watkins that turned them both in. After Enron filed for bankruptcy, stock fell from $97 down to less than $1, and many executives fell to justice. Some went to prison, and their public accounting firm Arthur Andersen, once considered to be among the 5th largest audit and accountancy partnership in the world, became de facto dissolution and now no longer exist. Enron became unquestionably the decisive event that shaped the content of the modern corporate governance paradigm. Notwithstanding, Enron's business case significance can only be fully appreciated in the context of the changes in expectations as to what it is to be best practice for corporate governance. In 2002, President Bush signed into law the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX, to protect investors from the possibility of fraudulent accounting practices by corporations. SOX mandates strict reforms to improve financial disclosures from corporations. Some of its main provisions require companies to establish procedures for whistleblowing, for the CEO and CFO to quarterly evaluate the design and operational effectiveness of internal controls, to test for them, to impose criminal penalties on violations. Therefore, since its inception, SOX has been credited to be very instrumental in detecting the loopholes companies have used to avoid accountability, and in doing so, it has shaped the modern framework of what corporate governance is today.
Now, let's look at an effective corporate governance example. Do you remember Whole Foods, but before Amazon? Whole Foods had a set of governance rules, such as a capped executive pay at 14 times the average worker's salary, and a tradition for employees to be able to vote on important benefits, and even more. But then, in 2017, there was pressure from an activist shareholder, an hedge fund investing in Whole Foods, who was trying to push and take over the board to eventually sell the company with a large profit. But Whole Foods CEO and founder got enough votes from investors to hire independent voters, and the hedge fund backed down, while Whole Foods was able to hire independent directors who eventually voted to sell to Amazon. Selling to Amazon kept the focus on long-term value and not only short-term profits. Finally, Whole Foods was sold to Amazon for $20.7 billion, having the impact that we know on food retailers' online market, and making Whole Foods business to survive. In conclusion, we believe that beyond the relationship between the board and the executive management, corporate governance is also key to strategy, as it should define the company's performance and the performance of the board, as well as put in place the board members themselves and define their responsibility. Perhaps more important is that corporate governance should lead to the establishment of the ethical tone of their organization, providing a framework for how the company and its employees should conduct themselves within a business environment, the goal being for the company to be a good corporate citizen. We would like to thank you all for your time. Have a good night.